were sent out to everyone. Hearing no changes, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
Sarah?
Can I have a second, Dr. Gray?
That.
Chris, can you throw that thing on?
I can do that. Mine's underneath there, we just can't see it right
Yeah,
now.
well, I'm trying to fix it from back here, doing them on a different computer.
Do I need to sit up there?
No, it's fine. It's just because I started recording. Well, there, now we can see it. Next is the enforcement list. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll get that shared.
So I got smart this time, and I put it in boxes. So that it was, can you make it a full page there for me? Okay, so the first one is 12/11/24, case number 2023-0097, Corona Community Ambulance Corps in Corona, New York. Article 30-12-1F, discontinued operation for a period in excess of 1 month, and their CON will be revoked effective 12/2/24. The second one, 12/11/24, 2023-0135, Stevenson from Niagara Falls, 816A1, has failed to comply with requirements, and 816A2, negligence. Suspended for 1 year, suspension stay pending successful completion of 3 years probation, civil penalty of $4,000, 2,000 stay pending successful completion of probation.
Sorry. Let me make everybody say, bear with me. There we go.
12/11/24, 2023-0127, Tanisha Garcia from Brooklyn. 815A1, comply with pre-hospital practice standards applicable for geographic region of the state which the individual is practicing. 816A2, negligence. 816A3, incompetence. 816A9, falsified record. 816A11, patient abandonment. Suspended for 1 year, suspension stay pending successful completion of 3 years probation. Civil penalty of $12,000, 8,000 stay pending probation, completion of probation.
That's gonna leave a mark.
12/11/24, 2024-156, Christopher Pilot from Farmingdale, New York, 800. They not see that on or something. 816A1 has failed to comply with requirements. Suspended for 1 year, suspension is stay pending successful completion of 1 year probation. 12/11/24, 2023-0347, John Peter from Worcester, 815A2, non-approved curricula, and we're seeing a lot of these on here. So I'm wondering if what it is people are using like that online to become a paramedic type deal, if that's the unapproved curricula. 815B1, when a certificate holder is acting as part of an organized pre-hospital EMS, the certificate holder responsible for patient care shall actively complete a pre-hospital care report in a department-approved format for each patient with whom the certificate holder makes contact and shall provide a copy to the receiving hospital. Revoked effective 12/9/24, assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. 1625, 2024-0051, Lyndon Brunson from Elmont, 800.3 AM, negligence. 800.3 AM, misconduct. 800.15B, patient confidentiality. Means assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. The next one, 11325, 2000 or 2024-013, Empress Ambulance Service in Yonkers. 821A, not valid health certificate. 821B, ambulance non-compliant. This one concerns me. 822H, packs not secured when transporting a patient. That could be a little bit of a rough ride. 823A, all equipment shall be clean, sanitary, and operable. 823F, needles, controlled substance secured in locked cabinets. 824B4, oxygen not meeting requirements. 824B6, portable suction equipment not meeting requirements. Civil penalty of $20,000. 11725, 2024, 0101, Ariana Morrison from Albany. 815A1, comply with pre-hospital practice standards applicable for the geographic region of the state with the individuals practicing. 815A2, not approved state curricula. 800.3AM, negligence. 800.3AL, incompetence. Revoked effective 117, revocation of state pending successful completion of paramedic refresher within 24 months, 3 years probation, 2,000 penalty, civil penalty is stayed. 12725, 2023-0173, James Kozak, Oakdale. 800.3AM, negligent. 800.3AO, patient abandonment. 800.15A, comply with 800.15A1, comply with pre-hospital practice standards applicable for the geographic region of the state in which the individual is practicing. Certificate is revoked. The revocation shall be stayed contingent upon completion of 1 year suspension and no further violations of public health law for a period of 3 years.
Oh, this is really long. I don't know. We're gonna zoom out all that.
Okay. That's here. 12425, 2021-0152, Ryan Morgan from Pleasantville, New York. 800.3AL, incompetence means a lack of, loss, or skill or knowledge to practice the profession and are practicing with negligence. 800.3AM, negligence. 800.15A1, 800.15A1. Oops, sorry, I got that twice. Comply with pre-hospital practice standards applicable for the geographic region of the state in which the individual is practicing. 800.16A1, comply with requirements in 800.15. 800.16A2, negligence in performance. 800.3. 800.16A3, incompetence. Suspended for 1 year, effective 2/21/25, suspension is stayed, pending no violations of public health law for 3 years, civil penalty of $1,000. And last one, 12825, 2023-0348, Ronald Jaffe Jr. from Hyde Park. 800.3AL, incompetence means a lack of or loss of skill or knowledge to practice the profession and are practicing with negligence. 800.3AM, negligence. 800.A51, comply with pre-hospital practice standards applicable for the geographic. Suspended for 1 year, effective 2/27/25, until such time as the respondent completes a paramedic full refresher without challenge and passes the New York State Advanced EMT recertification, whichever is later.
He used to be a writer up here.
Sure. Did he?
Yeah, well, got an orange here.
I don't have any other correspondence. Air medical reports, I'll just let Colleen and Matt talk.
Okay, I did send over an email. I won't read off the numbers because we send it. Just want to update you to let you know that probably in May, we're going to start carrying AutoPulse in all of our aircraft. So that'll be definitely something great for our communities and our partners. Also, we are specifically rolling out for our hospitals. It's just like our easy button, but it's called Flight Request, and it's a remote with walkie-talkie, and it works off cellular networks. So that is a little bit of a IT advancement, and then we're looking forward to spring. So yeah, so that's where we're at.
guys are on health care.
Oh, yes, we also are also that. That is that. With a lot of bumps.
Likewise, we've been using Pulsar for a little while. We use it through our communication center. It makes it easier. We're also hopefully collaborating with Wynn Hospital to work on some streamlining internally. More to follow on that stuff. I have meetings coming up soon to help with some of the Pulsar flow there. Again, primary assessment conference and spring fling, both we're ramping up for both of those, and then on May 30th is our spring education day. But we'll get announcements out on speakers and stuff for that soon, I'm sure. Follow our social media. In the meantime, we've got 5 new clinicians and a new pilot all under training, so we're going to be all over the place all the time.
All right, any questions for Colin or Nick? Perfect. Okay. So protocols, I'll cover those under the program agency report. Quality corner committee.
So Melissa's been insanely busy, so we haven't really had time to work on anything. But I was accepted into a QI and safety project program that the National Association of EMS Solutions does. So I have been working on a acquisition of bioscience and refusal study with 2 agencies. I started with 3, I've been dropping to 2, one in Jefferson County and then the Sky Search Rescue. So far, we've made some progress. We are starting percentage is 43, we're up to 57, so we're doing it.
So the next item is the medical director MOU CQI policy. After some guidance that was given at state meetings last week, those didn't get sent out to you because I had to go back and change a whole bunch of stuff in it. So the goal is to hopefully have it out to the council or to the REMAC and the council Friday for everybody to review and look over, and then we can discuss and vote on it at the April meeting. Not a bad curveball, just a little curveball. So the program agency report. All right, bear with me. Okay, so pad updates, no new one, or no updates, but we did receive 2 new ones from Finney's Auto Center in Canton, or Clayton, sorry, and for Team Blevins in the Government Ward. BLS iGel project, no new participants to that. Again, this will go into the new protocols. Okay. This will go into the new protocols that go into effect. If any ambulance agencies want to start doing it for them, they still need to go through the pilot program application. Also, out-of-state council meetings, Suffolk County is going to be leading a glucagon pilot. The setup will be very similar to what this BLS iGel program was, where they'll apply first to their region and get endorsement from the program agency and the medical director, and then it'll all be run through Dr. Winslow's program at Suffolk County. And that should be live July 1st. No BLS adjunct applications. We did receive a notification for ceftazoline from Blue Sky Search and Rescue. That's just a NOI to our office, so you all know that they're carrying it. EPCRs, no change. We're still in process with that, but we are going to be taking Great Bend Fire off the list because they are no longer an active CFR program. So protocol changes, and I will email this out to everybody. So the cardiac arrest protocol, It's just, the change will be to establish a max of 5 doses of epinephrine, additional with med control. The list of the protocols there. Adult ROSC, clarified under medical control considerations, option of amiodarone or lidocaine, and respective dosing. And then under cardiac arrest, addition of lidocaine with appropriate dosing for indicated conditions. Under the big one, a lot of these are just clarifications, but for anaphylaxis and allergic reactions, adding ipratropium to the EMT or higher level. So ipratropium after that will be going into the BLS scope. Under behavioral emergencies, Haldol is going out with olanzapine going into the med control option. And just more general notes about things and just small changes. Under the amputation protocol, they add addition of moxifloxacin at all levels, except for paramedic only, with training and equipped. Clarifying that moxie is only for adults and added a pediatric dosing for Sebazole. Same with musculoskeletal trauma. Oxygen administration and airway management. Under the EMT supervised airway placement, if equipped and trained, is being added in. And then the removal of key points requirements for a viral filter are the big changes there. And those will all get forwarded out to everyone once the state posts the change log. It'll be much easier to understand and see. As of this afternoon, it wasn't posted. So those are just based off of my notes from the collaborative protocol committee meeting in October. So learning management system, to date, just because we're in a year, so because it's just a good time to check in on it. So today we have 887 providers registered in the greater North Country Mountain Lakes region, and that is out of about 1,500 providers registered in the region. So that's a pretty good number of providers. 39 trainings have been uploaded in 2024. 17 of them were produced by FDR-HBO staff, 22 of them being from outside, and 14 of them being trainings from the Mountain Lakes region for their facility guidelines. I'm sure I say that right so Vinny doesn't yell at me. And then we've also partnered with Jefferson County Public Health for their MIH training for an additional 19 training assistants. If you want to talk more about it, go ahead. CQI review.
So we remember it currently, this is just the year wrap up. So let me just go to the next one, it breaks it down here. So in 2024, this reviewed 819 charts, 632 were from North Country, Florida, and 67 from Mountain Lakes. During that time, there were 45 agencies that had no charts uploaded, and 8 charts were sent to medical directors for further review. We are now reaching out to agencies actively that we notice don't have charts uploaded to try to rectify that. I found one the other day that hasn't had chart uploaded for August.
What system do they use?
The state's administrator.
State's administrator. So it's not, I mean, for so long, it was ESO stuff wasn't going on right, you know, when we're hearing
Well,
that.
that's still a problem.
But this agency is not, that's not the case.
No.
This is the overall deficiencies for the year. I can't see any of those numbers, so,
So, again, if I look really these glasses before. So in the overall category, obviously it's the focus assessment that is the biggest miss, with a total of 155, 100 from the Mountain Lakes region, 55 from the North Country region. And that's the big thing that we're still seeing. is getting a little bit better, but not much. It starts to rectify itself in some agencies, and then they get pulled again, and it goes right down to 2.
Do we know what EPCR is, the majority of these, is there a problem with
It's
setting?
Well,
Because how can you close the PCR if that isn't done?
because they're putting not applicable or not reported.
Most of them, if you just open up the assessment and timestamp it and put a value.
So, yeah,
you
a lot of
can
them
fill it out.
have like orientation completed, but that's it, there's no other sources.
Yeah, like
in the
a
chart.
pupil area assessment or, an alert status and then.
So like, focus
Here, you
assessment,
can't close it without doing ours.
right, they're putting just the mental status in.
And that satisfies
That
the requirement.
satisfies it.
But they're not actually diving into, this is a respiratory indication, we're gonna do a focus assessment of the body.
This has been, what, almost a year, this keeps coming up, we're not doing it, we're not doing it, we're not doing it, we're not doing it. Where, at what point can we get more data than just a chart that says either what agency, what provider, what?
Well, certainly, I
From
think
a while, you know what I mean?
Every
How do we-
week it's a summary after I audit them,
Okay.
after we audit them, Jonathan reviews it after I take it up, and it
All right.
has a blanket statement in it about spelling and grammar, because that's just a problem across the board. But then anything I find in the charts that we reviewed also goes into that.
The 3 platforms that I'm familiar with, as long as you open up the assessment and put something in there, it satisfies the.
So I've done it with ours, it won't close. If I skip a box or if that, well, I did the drop down and it didn't catch, I can't close chart.
Maybe you can set that up on your own.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is there something we can do at the agency level, at the EPCR level, that will bring that number down?
Well, part of the
It's
challenge
get a
is
year
too,
where we're up to 100 and
part of the challenge is too, is that we should have been, when the region got into the EMS charts for those agencies that buy it through FDR HBO, we should have been set up with a regional bridge so that we could go in and turn on and off things like that, but we were never set up for that. It's the same thing with IPCR,
Yep.
the same thing should have been done, and the same thing should have been done with ESO. ESO promises time and time again that they'll do it, and then they don't do it. So it's more of a, at the time that it was set up with our office, and that predates me, and I even think it predates Ann. That, those things never got done, and now to try to get them done is,
So,
not easy thing.
so the report that goes to the agency, does anybody, do we know that they looks at them or they?
We do.
We get a few revised.
We do.
And the emergency medical director does get included in that as well, I think, correct? No, well, they're gonna know.
Well, I would ask, respectfully ask, that you wait to see if you hear from the agency, because we found with mine that you had some stuff that didn't come over, right?
Yeah, and I found that today with the agency in, Washington County, none of their charts have assessments, and I know that they've had assessments in the past, so I called them and I was like, hey, I'm pretty certain this is a mapping issue, you need to look into it, that agency's greatly.
So I mean, I think it should go to the medical directors, but I think you should give the agency, we're gonna give you 15 days to review this and let us know if you agree or don't agree before you send it to the medical director to find out, oh, it was a mapping issue.
Yeah.
It just
And
seems like we
sometimes
need
I
to work
look
out
at
a
it
plan to
and-
get this better. If we're gonna, reporting on this every meeting saying it's,
Even if it were just a body system,
you know,
specific to the complaint, that would be more than what we're doing. But-
Some of them, he had a chart with no vitals left, and I figured this may be an mapping issue.
you know, I know we,
And we're tracking a lot of that stuff, and then if it becomes a visual thing, then that's something that we dive into a little bit more. And it's not that we think people are not doing this stuff, it's more of they're not documenting it in the right spot. So they're putting it in their narrative, or they're putting it in a comments field. They're putting it in a comments field, well, some of those comments fields, I'll use ESL for an example, don't transfer over. So you can say that you're doing it, but on the chart that goes to the hospital, and the chart that goes to the state, you're not doing it. So I think part of it too is breaking bad habits. But it's a work in progress, and I do think we're making some decent progress. And the charts that we have been sending to medical directors, they're very much warranted.
That being said, we are coming down a little harder than we've been doing a while, so we're looking deeper at charts. Last month, January, we sent 11 charts to medical directors. That's more than ever, that's more than we did all of last year. I don't know if it was just the agencies, I don't know what it was, we just got 11. So these are our overall concerning findings and charts. Spelling and grammar is a huge problem. Providing charts that contain personal statements and opinions. BLS providers are documenting care that was provided by ALS providers, specifically on ALS intercepts, which is documenting as your scope of practice. Lack of documented assessments and improper file sign acquisition is a new one that I have been noticing. People are waiting a very, very long time to get files. They're waiting for patients in the rate. One of them was close to an hour. And it's not just this region, it's both regions. Mountain Lakes, we brought it up at their REMAC meeting, and they are actually doing a QI study within their own little, however they do QI over there, to track how long it's taking providers to do that. They must have an issue.
Like upwards of an hour between first patient contact.
And most of the ones I'm catching it on are not just your run-of-the-mill patients, they're critical, like, they should have an intervention before you do that.
So QI initiative mapping issues, ESO is continuing to be a bit of a challenge with things that are not pulling over into the regional bridge. So there's data that we're not getting and seeing. So really, anytime we do a CQI review for this initiative on an ESO agency, that's an automatic disclaimer that's going in their review is this may be a mapping issue. Please talk to your vendor. So upcoming trainings, we have spring fling, April 10th through the 12th in Alice Bay. And you want to talk about it now?
Sure. So, we are adding some new things this year. One of the things is we're having a live band, Friday night, at the banquet. And it's a very
Popular.
Josh Cox and the Rattlesnakes, right? A lot of people heard him and know him and they follow them. So we thought for that maybe we would try a live band versus a DJ this year and just see how things go. Colleen is lending us, we're going to set up some games. We're going to have cornhole and a big Connect 4 game and Jenga, right?
Yeah.
That we're going to have available for people to do a race or whatever. So something just to kind of occupy folks a little bit. Food prices, we were able to hold them to last year's. So we did not have an increase there. So we were very, very happy with that. Thursday night's game is going to be EMS Trivial Pursuit. And we have big wooden dice that you'll roll, and we'll have tarps on the floor, and your whole team will roll around the tarp and take turns answering the question, and something a little different just to try to do something. We are adding something new this year. We're going to alternate years and do an ACLS or PALS research. We hear from a lot of people that they need that, and it's kind of cost prohibitive for them to get that with what is charged. So we're able to do it at a very reduced price. So this year will be ACLS, so next year will be PALS, so people can put that on their calendar if they need it type deal. So we were trying to help our providers in the region. We want to continue to market ourselves as your local regional conference and have people come and support us and do that. We've got some great speakers, we've got some great topics. I think we're, our numbers, our registrations, Jonathan told me not to panic yet.
Don't panic until I start panicking.
But when I talk to you after lunch, I have to be back on like last year with the problems with the registration. But we're only at like 55. But Jonathan said not to panic yet, so we'll hold the panicking. So, we're gonna do a CIC update as well that Friday morning. So that will be available for CICs to need it. Are we going to see any skills if they need it?
If anybody signs up for it, but
If nobody signs up, then how we doing on vendors?
we've probably got about 15 vendors. John Benocker from the Mid-State, or not Mid-State, from Finger Lakes, just sent me his vendors list of people, so I'm gonna start sending them stuff too, because why not?
I don't know how he does it, man.
I do that one either.
Whatever it is, he pulls a lot of
So yeah, that's where we are with that. Yeah. Okay, spring and fall for EMS Day, so the spring date is tentatively May 16th. The Mystic is just waiting for the blessing from their higher ups, who kind of gave it, but didn't firmly give it, so it's just a waiting game right now. And then the fall EMS Education Day will be November 1st, in North Country Community College up in Saranac Lake. There we go. So the tech, if you need to update your tech stuff, contact Amanda. There we go. And then our participation, EMS office is participating in state quality metrics, the legislative committee, state data and informatics. I forgot to update this. So the state EMS meetings, we attended in December and February, and we'll be going again in May. It'll be in Saratoga. Okay. Then miscellaneous stuff that we've been involved with. Does anybody have any questions for the program?
So Jonathan, why don't you give folks, we were talking about how many incidents have been sent up to the state.
Oh, I was gonna let Benny talk about that. We have seen an uptick in in our office's opinion, some rather egregious issues out of some agencies. So we have, because we don't have the regulatory authority to do anything about it, we have reached out and sent it to the state directly. It's nobody on this meeting's medical director, or else you would know what I'm talking about. So that's a good thing. But we've set quite a handful of things to Benny. Some of them are people practicing outside their scope. A BLS provider attempting to start an ID, even though they're an advanced student with no preceptor, is a no-no. Attempting to put a 4-lead on a patient in respiratory distress before even putting them on oxygen when they're a BLS provider and a BLS ambulance is a no-no. So thankfully, it's none of your agencies that are on this call. And I'll let Benny comment.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was very courteous of you. Across the state and specifically the Central New York region, we have seen quite a significant uptick in investigations rolling through. And that's across the board. I can tell you we're somewhere well north of 100 investigations already for the year, which seems pretty significant. The one thing that I ask is, when we're doing these, or if issues arise, if agencies can, get their medical directors involved and so on and so forth, it really does help on the long term. I know I've said this before, but we're not always looking for investigations. Unfortunately, that's a part of our job. But if we can kind of quell some of them before they happen, that would be great.
Okay, so that is an update there. Missing off the agenda is a CMAC and SEMSCO update. Mark?
CMAC and SEMSCO met last week. A lot of the conversation was focused around the governor's budget. It's part R of the health budget. There's a lot of initiatives in there, but of the billions of dollars that the state has dedicated towards investment in healthcare, none of it goes to EMS. That is a big concern, especially as some of the legislative changes that have been proposed are kind of looked at as unfunded mandates. John brought up the protocol changes and the glucagon, I am glucagon project. So that's most of what's pertinent to REMAC.
I think it is pertinent to put in here from the state council. I wasn't there, but I know, just so that everybody's aware in this meeting, our program agencies still do not have a contract in New York State, and that is just obscene. At our Remsco meeting that we had in December, we approved sending a letter to our elected officials. That was done. I did do that. And there seems to be a lot of confusion on where these contracts are. Ryan is leading to believe that they're the comptrollers, and a call was made to the comptrollers, and they said, we don't have them. They haven't made it here yet. And it's just, I'm really, really concerned that our program agencies are going to start laying off people because it's been 16 months, and depending on who they work for, they're covering that cost, and that's a lot. You know, FDR HPO was very, very committed to the region and that, but there's got to come a point where you say enough is enough. We can't continue to do that without doing a layoff. And I really think something extreme is going to have to happen at the program agencies to get the state to get off their ass and make this happen. Somebody should find them and be walking them around from office to office to get this done. It'd be different if it was a couple months, being that it's 16 months, right? 9 months? I thought it was 16. But 9.
Go into effect July 1st of last year.
But that's just obscene. It's obscene that this is happening and that they can't get money, and how, you know, some places, they don't have an FDR HPO that is their oversight, that is able to help float that. And what are our providers going to do if we don't have that office to assist them with stuff? What is going to happen? I mean, we're already in a.
Unfortunately, this is not new. I can remember when I was in Jonathan's seat, Central New York actually had closed their doors, and they forwarded their office phones to the Department of Health rep. And that was, I don't know, a long time ago, for 20 years ago. They literally shut down their office for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, it got a lot of attention and contracts were resumed, but that's essentially what happened at the Central New York office. They were the only region that did that. There was a couple of regions. Fortunately, that time we still had SUNY Canton that was supported as much like Fort Drum now, but they literally closed up shop for a couple of weeks.
And we're concerned that there are some smaller program agencies that are in a similar boat. Central New York being one of them. But if y'all want to call them or ask people, I appreciate it. Any other old business from anyone? Okay, we'll move on to new business and the clinical opioid withdrawal score of the cows. And I'll let Debbie talk about this.
So, we were going through the MS charts and did an update and put some stuff in there, and this cow showed up, and we're like, cows? We know about cows, they're black and white or brown, right? So we went in and looked at this, and I don't know if everybody looked at it, but it's a clinical opioid withdrawal score. And I didn't know if this is something that we should start educating and doing training on and start using in the field to make sure that we're identifying these folks and, you know, there's been talk before of having us start doing, what is it? And in order to do the program, you've got to do this score. But I think sometimes, you know, we're quick to say, oh, it's a withdrawal, we'll just take them to the hospital, maybe not looking at them as close as we should and identifying the severity. So I wanted to bring it here to get your folks' thought on, is this something that we should start asking our core sponsors to do education on, putting some education together up on a learning management system and get that process started?
Who's gonna do this? What level does it matter?
I would say it's at the basic level.
I can read some of that, so I'm kind of,
Here.
I'm squinting, sorry.
Personally, I think it's a great idea. Likely most hospitals use it, and therefore when reports are transmitted by Pulsera, it gives us an opportunity to figure out where in the spectrum our patient is.
I agree. I think it'd be a good tool in the toolbox, especially for the providers that are doing additional training like outside in the communities. I think this would be a great tool for public health as well. Because a lot of times when they do the Narcan training and the overdose stuff, they're not teaching the difference between a dose and an overdose. And you see the overuse of Narcan, you know, and so I think it'd be a great platform to start with at the BLS level. And then perhaps it'd be something that we could get the other partners involved in to get them engaged.
Maya, you use this, how often do you do it? Is it like an app guard that you do it so often, or is it a one and done?
We providers don't do it, our nursing staff does. And there's a variety of scores. There's a variety of like measurements. But it's helpful probably when I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself twice, which is when I talk. It's helpful when the patient comes to the hospital, maybe for triage of placement of the patient. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know, Dr. Delaney, Dr. Maynard, or Holliday, your thoughts?
When we use it in the ED, we are using it for medication-assisted treatment. And it's going to be reassessed if we are indeed administering Suboxone to the patients. That's what we would use when we're going to do that. Then we repeat it every hour because it contains antagonists. It can induce withdrawal, so we want to ensure people are already in withdrawal when we start, and then we measure to get them to an acceptable level prior to discharge.
So we're probably, in our time, we're probably going to do this one time. Okay.
Yeah.
So my thought was that maybe we could introduce this as spring fling. We could do up some colored, see if we could make them smaller that people could put on their IDs, and then provide colored ones for agencies to put in their rigs.
Agree.
The next item is you as well.
I'm going to let Neil start with this, and then we'll tag team.
Well, that's not really fair, because I don't know what our group's called. Maybe we'll let Chris define what the group is. There you go. So we've been having a regular, reoccurring discussion about performance measures in EMS and how we can look at the overall health of our EMS system. And several items have come up relative to training and education and supporting the 911 center, supporting BLS providers and ALS providers with education. It's kind of a continuous growing discussion. The reason I'm here tonight is because we had a couple of discussion points at the last meeting about response, and there seems to be a growing trend from responders to want to stop going out for no injury calls. And by that, I'll tell you that our policy at Jefferson County 911 is if it is a duck, a motor vehicle accident, there are fluids leaking, there is a potential for injury, that the whole cavalry goes. We send law, we send fire, we send EMS. A lot of these are car deer accidents that don't amount to more than radiator fluid, and there are no injuries.
Airbag deployment.
Airbag deployment's a big indicator. If there's fluids leaking in an airbag deployment, then we send EMS. The call seems to be to want to shift that policy to not responding EMS if there is no stated injury. And my director is very comfortable with that, but it's not a decision that he or we should be making. So my ask for Deb and the working group was to, let's take this to a higher power. Is this an order or a recommendation that should come out of the EMS office from Director Barter? Is this something that should come from REMAC or REMSCO? And Deb said, what better place to ask that question than to this group? So that's why I'm here. We're not opposed to changing policy, providing there are two conditions. One is their authority over a jurisdiction, EMS, and our medical director, who admittedly we don't contact and talk to enough, but our medical director has to agree to that shift as well, and I see that. I looked for that when I got it. You know, we don't have an issue changing the way we do business, but we don't want to delay patient care to transport for the iffy, wishy-washy, I hit a deer, but I don't think I'm hurt, and then they end up having a sprain, a strain, or a broken fingernail. We don't feel it's prudent and appropriate for us to make those outside of EMD judgment calls, emergency medical dispatch protocols, without some direction from a higher power. And I don't really care who the higher power is. It can be a director of EMS that tells me we need to manipulate our policy. It can be my medical director. It can be this body. It can be the REMSCO. But we don't just arbitrarily want to change a response policy. And then there's a lot that goes into it, staffing and number of volunteers and amount of time that, you know, we're on calls, and there's a lot of pieces and moving parts to it, but that's the crux of my engagement here tonight. So I would offer that I'm open to any discussion and anything Deb wants to add.
So a lot of us are getting tired of getting out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning for a car gear, and dispatch tells us car gear, airbag deployment, no injury, and they're sending us out anyways. So we're wasting gas, we're burning out our volunteers and our paid staff, and 9 times out of 10, we're getting disregarded before we ever get to the scene because law enforcement gets on the scene. So one of the things that we're looking at on this performance measurement is, can we stop doing that? Is there a need to send it if they call 911 and say, I just hit a deer, and 911 says, are you hurt? And they say, no. My airbag did deploy, but I'm not hurt. Can we stop sending ambulances to that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Fine by me.
If you look at I mean, a lot of this stemmed, EMD originated in the late 70s with Dr. Clausen. And in the 1980s, if you follow the history at all, there was, that's when a lot of cities were looking to cut fire department budgets. I hate to say it, but, you know, all that stuff comes down to politics and political nonsense. In an effort to increase numbers, that's when you started to see an uptick of responses because you had to have, you know, we had to increase the numbers and that just kind of flavored over to the, I mean, that's my opinion.
I think also,
There's,
The best of public needs.
you know, there's, when, I mean, particularly with today's technology with cell phones and OnStar, when someone is on a scene and says, I'm not injured, I just struck a deer, but my airbag deployed, that ought to be justifiable not to send an ambulance.
also back in the early 80s, when we had an MBA, we used to roll for ambulances because cars were not made, designed the way they are today.
The same,
We see rollovers back in the 80s when we had multiple fatalities. We see rollovers today and you walk away without a scratch. So I think to Mark's point, we certainly have not kept up with the technology or the car manufacturer that makes this really unnecessary.
and on top of that, you have the cell phones now with crash notifications and all that stuff. It's desensitizing all of our responders. I mean, we've spent January, we chased around snowmobile accidents 4 different times. To only have found either a cell phone on a trail or somebody did wreck a sled, but nobody was hurt. They dragged it off and no one was there. It was an unfound call to begin with. And, you know, 12 responders and 3 apparatus running around on the hill later, and we were chasing our tails. So,
Well, again, I'll say, we at Jefferson County are not change averse. We are willing to flex the way we do our business, but at the end of the day, there's 3 things to consider. First is ultimately liability. If we don't send a responder, there's some liability that hangs on the county. Second is we're fighting technology because when airbags first came out, there was fear mongering relative to the explosion within the car. And, you know, that's changed. I mean, look how much cervical spine immobilization has changed. And the third thing is in 30 years of practicing as a paramedic, I've never wanted to make a patient out of somebody who didn't have a complaint. I was, no injuries meant there was no injuries. And I feel that, you know, my dispatchers, and I can't affect change in St. Lawrence or Lewis or any other county, but my dispatchers are very, very good at asking, are you injured? Is there any injuries? Have you talked to the other occupant? Are they okay? And again, my director is not averse to making a change. It's just, we've got to hang that liability piece somewhere. And if we don't send an agency and there is an injury and a cop gets there and it goes from bad to worse in the next 10 minutes, then the policy had to be driven by some other force. That's what we're asking for.
My question is, everything is recorded. Okay?
Yeah.
You have it recorded that the party involved said, I am not hurt. I don't need an ambulance. There goes, there's no liability. Now, when you get a responder on the scene, law enforcement, and if that person says, oh, you know, yeah, I'm hurt. Okay, now we respond. But as soon as they say, I don't need an ambulance, I'm not hurt, there's no liability at that point. Because you have it recorded.
And one thing I thought of with this, Ian, why is this any different than when you have a domestic and you're sending law enforcement and it's a physical domestic and they tell you they're not hurt, you don't automatically, you don't send the ambulance.
Correct. We wait for law enforcement to request it.
So why would this be any different?
That's a good point.
You know, you probably heard the same thing. You have people that claim that they were injured, but they declined the ambulance. I mean, at that point, there is no ambulance, and at that point, I don't see this again as a whole lot different. If you've got somebody that says, I do not want an ambulance, do not need an ambulance, I think that is pretty well clear. Chances are, if we do get on scene and they are slightly injured and do want an ambulance, it's real easy to get one coming. Chances are this is not a light threat. You know, we're not racing the clock here.
And the other thing is, it's causing us problems because of our call volume in the county. We're rolling to a non-injury and then we're having something in another area and we're tied up on going to a non-injury MVA and then we're having to pull in resources from another service cover that.
And
Well,
this
they
isn't,
did request
this isn't a localized problem. From what I'm seeing, at least over towards the Finger Lakes, that's the same thing occurring over there. The ambulances are asking to not be sent to lift assist type calls.
Yeah.
Where it's more of a fire service, public service type request. The ambulances are actually asking to stay out of that until it does become a matter transport.
Actually, ambulances are actually charging for those. And one of the ambulance agencies in a certain area is asked to have the fire department do them. With assist, things like that, because it's just, again.
I mean, I would challenge that, would show me in state and county law where it tells me a fire department's responsible to go pick Mrs. Jones up, they're there for fire protection.
Same can be said about the ambulance.
Absolutely,
Yep.
100%. You send an ambulance today up to another county to, support a lift assist. And I mean, you want to talk about a misuse of an ambulance, right? I ended up finding out that there were broken phone lines and that they did need rescue to come and help them, but at the end of the day, again, I'm not averse to change. I just think that policy needs to be driven by the authorities. And in this county, EMS has its own office with its own director. And that director, to Paul's point, we do have recordings, but we also have to take into consideration the people that are behind the microphones at the moment that those calls are coming in. And they're erring on the side of caution 100% of the time. Because they don't think downrange to, well, we got a recording where they said they weren't hurt. So our policy has been and is, so I'm just looking for support from a body so that I can move forward with having a conversation with Matt, because we're not going to change a policy like that in regards to patient care without our medical director being on board with that as well. So I'm willing to make the change. We just need to figure out where that ask is going to come from officially.
Well, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I really am not. But unfortunately, by statute, the office of the EMS, we have no authority. None in the county. The only thing we have responsibility for is the mutual aid plan. That's it. I can't, in education. I can't tell anybody, we need you to do this, because they can just tell me to pack it. We have absolutely zero authority.
So do you guys need support from this body?
I believe it needs to come from.
Do you guys?
Conversations with the
So
state.
do you guys need support from REMAC?
REMAC, yeah. Start with REMAC.
But we don't oversee
Okay.
911 we don't oversee this. We can do a letter of support for you and your colleagues and the medical director. I support that with Dr. DeLay. But we don't oversee, right?
That does.
That's just
Right.
cool.
Yeah, I'd say
I've never even seen the protocols. I don't, I don't know your world, but I certainly support wholeheartedly what you're saying. We have too few resources here, and your dispatchers, no doubt, have their expertise and algorithms in place. And so I just don't know our legal responsibility of REMAC. I think I would feel comfortable doing a letter of support for the medical director and you folks to decide to, implement this.
Dr. Holliday, what do you do in Syracuse? Do you send ambulances to non-injury MVAs?
I'm not 100% sure. Dr. Olson is the Onondaga County 911 medical director as well, but it's separate from his role as the national medical director.
And again, I would argue Syracuse has different resources than us. Like what the ask is very reasonable. And I wholeheartedly support this initiative.
As do I.
Is that a motion and a second then?
I make a motion to send this body to send a letter of support for the initiative discussed today.
And I second that.
All in favor, the docs, just put a thumbs up or say yes. Perfect, that's all of them.
So along with this, one of the concerns that Neil had was his dispatch people don't know the different levels of care and what they can do. So I put together, I think it's only 7 slides. I put together a PowerPoint for each level of care and what they can do. And then he asked that I do a test, which was kind of hard to do 7 slides. So I came up with a 5-question true or false. And he wanted it short because he wanted to do it like in a 15-minute briefing before they go on shift. So I didn't get any feedback on the test. I'll schedule another performance measurement meeting for the next week or so. And I think we'll launch that. And then I'd be glad to share it with the other counties if it's something that could help you. You're more than welcome to it. Chris put together the information. They wanted to have each agency and what level they were, so that they would have that to look at. So we've done that to add that in there as well. So I think that is going to hopefully start that education process and do some of that. So we will be putting that out.
I haven't rolled that out into the center yet, but I've had a lot of discussion with the seniors and the senior staff. It just came down to simply when the AEMT level came in, things got very convoluted in the 911 center. Because do we send an ALS ambulance? Are they ALS providers? No matter how many words you put on a piece of paper, it still gets a little convoluted at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're trying to figure it out. So we've gone round and round about it, and finally with this performance measures thing, Deb called up to do that. And the conversations I've had with my staff, they're very receptive to the idea. They're looking forward to seeing the training. And because there's a test, they get CME credit for it, so it goes towards their EMD research.
And the other thing that's on here was out of the performance measures, and maybe monthly won't work, but we would really like to see us try to establish some meetings with our local hospitals that's opened up to EMS with the ED, where we could start a 2-way communication and talk about, whether it's something as easy as, hey, we really need an area to do our chart to leave you something which you lost at Samaritan, to other things that people may bring up or things that your ED staff has, and try to do some 2-way communication and try to reduce some of the backbiting and the stuff that we sometimes hear because it grows so far. If we could maybe address them and see if we can't get some rapport going between the ambulance services and the ED. And again, maybe monthly is not realistic. But if we could look at trying to do something, opening it up to the services, if they don't come, we try. Let's see if we can't do something to help mend some of those bridges.
And Deb, I think we're in a good situation now. We finally had some stability within our leadership, certainly at Samaritan. So with Jeremy and Jen in their current positions, I think this would be a good time to take another look at doing this, and I support it.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other new business? So hearing none, before we are done, I'd like to thank Colonel Vento for her time on the council. She is retiring, if I'm not mistaken, from Fort Drum. And her replacement won't be here until October. But thank you so much for what you've done and the insight you give to us from the military side of the house. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that and appreciate my ability to join you. So, and I will make sure that my place is up for success and ready to join you when he's here and hits the ground running.
Perfect. Thank you so much. With no further business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. And I'll jump at once. Dr. Maynard and Dr. Gray. All right, thanks everybody.
you.